Hello everyone, this is Gayle, and today, since it's getting close to fall and October is like right around the corner, I wanted to show you something, and this is, oh goodness, 15 years old. When I was in Florida, I taught some polymer clay classes in Joann's, and this, of all the ones I taught, which was only a couple because I just couldn't get people signed up, but one of the most, the one that got the most interest was this little skull cane. And I just narrowed some down to make earrings, reduced them down. But here's my skull that I used as a necklace. And I just thought maybe since it's getting close to Halloween, maybe you have some children or grandchildren that would love to have a skull necklace or bracelet. I thought I would show you how I did this. And I'm going to try to go by my directions that I've got them taped up here on the wall that I did for my class. I wish there was a date on it, but there's not. They're probably, I've got skull cane bracelet, skill level, age 10 to adult, 3-hour class. Well, hopefully this isn't going to take us 3 hours. And that's because I was showing new people how to do this. But the first thing that you're going to need is a template. Now this is a picture of a skull I got off of the internet, just a simple skull. And I'm going to use this. This is about, I reduced it to this size because this is about the size I would like my cane to be. So I find, I leave that kind of on my desk because I refer to it often. And I'm going to take 1 block of black and 1 block, these are 2-ounce blocks, and 1 2-ounce blocks of white, and I've condition those and roll them out on the thickest setting of my pasta machine. And I'm also going to need some red, but I won't need this till later, so I'm going to put this over to the side just so I'll have more space. And I'm going to wipe off where I had my red laying, because if you've ever worked with red clay, you know, can you see it on my paper towel? You know how red gets on everything. So right now, I'm going to put aside 1 of the black pieces and 1 of the white pieces. And we're going to work with this. And what I'm going to do is take the black and I'm going to roll this up until it forms a log about 1/2 inch in diameter, which is about there. Let me make sure there's my 1/2 inch on my sheet. On my grid. So I'm just going to roll this, not to reduce it any, but just to make the sides even. And it did come out a little bit, so I'm just going to press it back in. So this is about, well, it's actually a little more than 1/2 inch. Let me just pull it back out a little bit. That's about 1/2 inch. Can you see on my grid? I'll come in just a little bit. These 2 bold lines would be 1/2 inch, and that's just about right. Maybe that's about 1/2 inch right there. And what I'm going to do, it ended up being wider than I thought, so I think what I'll do is just cut it down. I'm going to take my white, and this is also rolled out at the thickest setting of the pasta machine. And I'm going to roll this black in white, but I'm going to cut this edge off, and I'm going to cut it at a beveled angle. And roll it around till it touches. Back it up. And I'm going to cut this in the opposite direction. And see if that works out the way I hope it would. It would, except I didn't do it. I didn't bevel it in the right direction. But it did meet up, which is what's important. And I'm going to trim this white off the end before it gets contaminated with the black. There's a little, whoops, I'm cutting black, so I don't mind a little bit of black getting in my white clay, but I really like it to keep my white, and then the ones that have little bits in it, something else, because you can use them for different things. Now the first thing I need to do is to roll this down to about the size of these eyeballs, which is probably a little bit so here's my necklace. I'll keep that out too so you can look at it. But about the size, about 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to reduce this down to about 1/4 of an inch. And what you need to do, let me get this end cut off. Is lay it on your template to see if it fits, and that does. So I'm going to keep this cane fairly short, so I'm going to cut it at maybe 1.5 inches. And we're going to need 2, and this side isn't reduced down as much as that was. So I need to reduce down another one and cut it down to about 1.5 inches. Make them round. Now I'm not doing, this one had, this picture, you don't have to match the picture exactly, you're just looking at the shape. This has white with different colors in it mixed in, surrounded with a black eye. This one I did just the black eye. So I think I'm going to still do that. So I'm going to take my template here, and I have laminated this. This is the same one I used in my class, and it's laminated. And I'm just going to set my eyes up on my template. There you go. I've got 2 eyes. Looks kind of funny, doesn't it? It's because they're not stabilized yet. So I'm going to take another one of these pieces, and again I'll cut it about 1.5 inches, but it'll probably get longer and have to be trimmed again. And I'm going to make this just a little bit smaller. Then I'm going to pinch it into a triangle. And again, I'm going to trim it at 1.5 inches. And I'm going to lay this on the nose. Let me just make sure both ends look the same. Going to lay this on here where the nose goes. So then I'm going to set that aside. Now I'm going to take some white. I'm going to do this a little different. If you look on here, I did black teeth. Focus, focus. See, I have black teeth, and we can still do black teeth, and I might so I can use up this. But you could also do another cane, bullseye cane like this, only have the white in the center and the black on the outside. And I think I might do that just to make it different from this one. Let me move this back where you can see it. So I'm going to roll up this white. This may mean I'm going to need to condition some more clay. I'm not going to use all of this because I don't need that much. But there's my white. And I need to make it about 1/2 inch wide for it to hold the black wrap. And that's a little over about 2.25 inches long. I'm going to take some black I'm not going to bevel this time. I'm just going to roll it the way I always do. Trying to do something different, it never turns out the way you think. So I'm going to roll this into a black. And even though I double checked that, it still overlaps. So let me cut a little bit more off. Black is so hard to work with because you can't see it very well. Especially when you have to sit back like I do. So what I'm going to do with this is we're going to reduce this down. And I'm going to reduce this down as much as I can. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller than the eye cane that I did. And I'm going to trim it off till I get down to white. And I'm going to cut these at 1.5 inches, even though I'll probably have to trim it again. And reduce the rest of this cane. And cut it at 1.5 inches. And I'm cutting it at 1.5 inches because that's the thickness of my eyes and nose and mouth so far. And these down here on the end are a little bit smaller than the others, so I'm just going to put one on one end and one on the other. Let's see how many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teeth is what I ended up with. You can do as many as you want. And just line them up and stick them together. And start pushing them in. Because teeth are not round. And these are skeleton teeth after all. So they're not going to be perfect. I'm going to turn it over and push the other side just so I can get them fairly even on the sides. I'm going to stretch it a little bit. And I'm going to cut them in half. And see which way I want to put them together. I guess I'll do it that way. And of course, you see the size of our mouth down here, so this is way too big, so we've got to still reduce these a little bit. And as I reduce, I'm going to start pinching the sides because I want a happy skull. I'm not much on Halloween. I don't do a lot of Halloween things. And I don't like the idea of skulls, but people seem to like them. Then I've got to get it as small as my template, which means it still needs to go in some. Still has to go in some. Otherwise, your teeth are going to be way too big for your face, or for your skull face. I've got a little ridge coming up here just from the way I'm pushing that, so I'm just going to kind of flatten that ridge out a little bit. See how long this has gotten? I'm thinking that might be a good size. So see, there's my teeth. So I'm going to cut this to 1.5 inches. And see how this fits on my template. Let me curve it up just a little bit. So there's our eyes and nose and mouth. So from here on out, it's just filling in with the white. So I'm going to take this white, and here's a sheet. I'm going to bring that, it's not 1.5 inches though. Let me see if I can go down 1 notch on my pasta machine. That's 1.25 inches, so let me go down 1 more notch. It's about 1.5 inches. And I'm going to come down around. Well, let me go here first. You need to start filling in all these spaces. So I'm going to put this white above the mouth. I must not have this all at 1.5 inches. And I'm going to use some kind of little tool. I've got this metal tool that has a little scoop end. I'm just going to use that to press it up against the mouth. Then I'm going to press the nose down onto that. Let me put my eyes back where they belong. So I'm going to take now, I'm going to take two that are a little bit skinnier. To put under each eye. And then those all should stick together. I'm cutting this at 1.5 inches because somewhere along the line I'm going to have to trim this off. And I'm going to take these small little pieces that I have cut off, and I'm going to roll those into a little snake. And I'm going to, and this is just scrap. There's no specific amount. I'm just picking up what I have here. And I'm going to roll this really skinny, because if you look, there's a little skinny space in there and in here. Actually, it's not as prominent there. But there's a little skinny space. It looks like a little tiny triangle. So I'm just going to fill that with a little tiny triangle of white. By rolling it out. And I'll roll it out to 3 inches so I can cut 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches. Pinch them into little triangles. You can pull your eye back and just stick your little triangle in that space. And you have to use your tool to kind of get it in there where it needs to be. Then you can put your eye back. And do the same thing on the other side. Just stick the point down in this little area. And it's because there's space between your eye. The nose is more of a triangle shape or a teardrop shape. And your eye is round, so they don't really go together very well. So then I'm going to cut another little strip. To go in here. And you can move things around. There, you've got your template here. You can always get things back in the right place. I'm going to need enough to go around my mouth. And you just keep filling in. Now you see here on my skull, there's two little black marks, and that was because it just gives it the definition of the shape. But first I'm going to put make another triangle. Sorry, I got distracted. To put here between my eyes so that I can make this a round cane. You may have to trim. I think this is coming out a little bit too much. So I'm going to trim that so I can get my eyes back where they need to go. Let's see if this eye is there. I need to put a thin strip, so let me go down just a little bit. You see, I just measure as I go. Kind of come down to the side of that eye and to the side of this eye. It's a little bit too big. So let me just trim it a little bit. The object is to get this to where it's smooth so you can make it into a nice round cane. Okay, now if you look here, you see a little space here and a little space here. So I'm going to take, again, this scrap clay and just make a little log. Actually, this one's got air in it, so let me squeeze that air out. And it doesn't have to be perfectly round, because all you're trying to do is fill in some space. So I'm just going to press this in here and trim off the top. And fill in this space here and cut off the top. Now I need a little skinny piece of black. I don't know if this will reduce down enough or not. Let me see. No, I don't think that's going to be thick enough. Let me flatten out this, what's left of this black log. Remember, I cut off a piece of the black log. I'm going to roll this on a number 3. Because I just need a little S shape there. So I'm going to trim this at 1.5 inches. Now remember, these were absolute beginners that were in my class, and we really had a good time. So I think I only needed about that wide. And And I'm just going to press it up against the side. And again, it's too long. I don't know how you can keep measuring and still end up with the wrong width. And just don't, you can press it in on the top, but leave the top, on the bottom, but leave the top open. I don't think that's wide enough. And as we saw a little while ago, it's going to be a little bit too long. But I'm going to leave this, attach this here. And this is just to give that shadow effect. You see on here, I have the little black line. It just kind of gives a little bit of shape to the skull. Leave the top open. So again, I get just my white scrap. And I'll just roll this. Just make sure there's no air. And this time I have a little bit bigger space to fill in here. So I'm going to make this one a little bit big, so whatever is left over can just be mashed into place. But I'm going to make a point on this. And you see there's some black on this? I don't care. I'll just put the black next to this black clay, and then when you start to cut this, you'll never know it's there. You'll think it's part of the black. And same over here, except this one doesn't have any black, so I don't have to worry about which side goes next to the black. This is just to give this a little bit of a curve. And I'm going to mash this flat. And from here on out, looks like I'm going to have to get a little bit more white, but we're just going to, let me see what we got here. I'll use what I've got. Start filling in the white. Because we need to fill in all this. So let me take this and roll it through my pasta machine. I'm going to use it in a number 5. Because I don't need it real thick. I just need to cover that black piece. Let me come back out just because I find myself working closer and closer to me, and I know you can't see that. Actually, I'm going to take this all the way down. I'm not going to worry about cutting it off there. I'll just cut off the top. And since I came down on that side, I'll come down on this side just to keep it symmetrical. You know, Madonna said she was a material girl. I'm a symmetrical girl. And you see we still have space up here at the top. So I will have to condition some more clay. So let me do that and then I'll be back. Okay, I've cut some more 1.5 inch high strips of white, and I'm just going to add layers until it is the right shape and the right thickness. And just keep going. I'm going to be getting a little bit round here, so each layer is going to have to be cut a little bit shorter. Otherwise, you would end up with a square head, and we don't want a square head. But see how close we're getting to filling in this amount up at the top. It's almost done. And you can use your shape to see where you need to stop your clay. And I might trim this just a little bit. Put this on the top. Alright, I'm going to pull it off of my laminate, of my template. And from here on out, I'm going to wrap it in black. And the object is to make it into a round cane. So it might take a lot of black. I have plenty. I need to save some from my outside. Let me go ahead and start that before I go any further, just so I'll know how much black I've got left to play with. We're going to make a stacked cane to trim it with. So I've cut this piece of black, and I'm going to lay it on my red. And I know this is a straight line, so I will cut that. This is cadmium red. You can use any red. I just like cad red. It's nice and bright. And then separate your colors. Then I can use that black. And I can use that black. And I can use this black. So what we're going to do here is make a stacked cane. So I've got black and red rolled out to the thickest setting of the pasta machine. They don't look like they're cut very straight. Let me line that one up. No, they're not. They're way crooked. But then I'm going to cut this in half. Let me lay that on a line so I'll know where half is. This is 1, 2, 3, and almost a quarter. So I'm going to go a little over 1.5 inches. And then stack the red against the black. And follow it all the way down so that it matches up. And we will use this when we're finished, when we're ready to finish it. So let's wrap this in black. I'm going to take this and I think I'm going to roll it on a number 3. And I'm going to need to trim this, of course. So I'll cut off this ragged edge. Don't do that with a sharp blade. Mine's far from sharp. And just start wrapping. Now, as you can see, this only went around once, and I need to go around several more times, at least down here. So I'm going to have to condition some more black clay. So it took a little bit more than one block. So if you're starting from scratch on this, go ahead and condition 2 blocks or 1.5 blocks. I'm using an 8-ounce block, so I'm just going to trim, oh, I don't know, an inch or so. I love my big blocks of black and white and translucent. And I've told you before, they stay on my work surface all the time because I use them more than anything. So I'm going to condition this and then I'll be right back. Okay, I've conditioned some more and rolled it into strips. And this is the number 3 setting. I'm not going to cut the end off. But I'm going to wrap a little bit more around this bottom before I start going more towards the top. Because we need to fill in the jaw area. Now it looks a little funny right now. Actually, I've got some of these pieces that I trimmed off that I can use in some of these areas, like right here. I'm going to pull this around. I don't think we need to do any more on the bottom. So let's see how this does. So we're going to start to reduce this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to press on this end to make this end smaller. Then I'm going to press on this end to make this end smaller. Then I'm going to press in the middle to even it up. And that helps save a little bit of your ends. I know this looks really ugly right now. Another way to do this would be to pinch in the middle, which kind of pushes everything in the middle, and then you can work your way out. See how I did sort of a waist here in the middle? Then I'll just push out. And we don't want to reduce this too much because we need to put our band on, our trim, but I didn't want to do it when it was that big. Let me just roll it to get this round. And then I'm going to trim off this end. To see what I've got. think I'm going to have to do more. Didn't get all of it that way. I really scrunch these ends quite a bit. So I'm going to lose a lot of this cane. But there's their skeleton. And of course you can shape it however you want it. After it's reduced, you can reshape. I'm not going to cut this end off until the very end. But his eyes got a little wonky. But I think he's going to work out okay. And I'm going to take this. And I'm going to cut it into strips. Maybe, well, let me use my Marks It tool. I'll use the 5mm side. And they line up on both sides, so that's good. Except I can't see the ones down there, so let me just cut on these lines. I hope this is enough. And you lay the red next to the black, and you just go all the way around. And if you want, you can take your blade to flatten out this a little bit, just so that these will go on better. There you go. And I think I will. You can, if you don't like to use your blade, you can use an acrylic block. Anything you've got that's flat, just to make this flat, so that your next flat line will fit up against it. This clay is so soft, which is probably one reason why the head disfigured as much as it did, because I'm not letting it wait before I reduce it. And I don't believe I'm going to have enough of these. I may have to make a couple more. So it looks like I need 3 or 4 more of these. So let me go ahead and make some more stripes, and I'll be back. Okay, I finished wrapping my skull, and I haven't reduced it anymore. I just cut off the bad end that was still on it. But there we go. You can reduce this. Of course, I would let it sit But you can reduce it to any size that you want. I'm just trying to figure out how I can get that jawbone in a little bit, because if you look at this, I managed to get the jawbone in. I probably didn't pack it exactly the way I did on here, but you get the idea. So hopefully you can do something with this. Like I said, I reduced some down to make earrings. You can see how old they are because the earrings have tarnished. The earring findings, they're probably sterling silver and they're really tarnished. But just put a couple, save some of your beads here. Matter of fact, what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to go ahead and cut those since I've got them marked. And then what I would do is maybe cut down this way. And just make little squares on the top. That one was a little bit long, but you can trim that off. And then you have all of these little beads that you can poke holes in and use on a bracelet. See, all these now are beads. Just pull them apart and poke holes in them. And the number of beads you have will be determined by the amount of extra clay you've got left over. But just for your information, I only used a half a block of the red, if that gives you any idea as far as quantities. Just want to get these separated while I can. But I'm going to let everything sit now. Going to let this sit before I reduce it. Got lots of scrap again. You know I don't like scrap. But I have enough mouth left for another cane. So I might save that. I've got this for another cane. So I really have all the makings of another cane, except I would need more black clay. So I hope you enjoyed this. Like I said, I'm not a big Halloween person. I'm not a big skull person. It's just not my thing. But it was a very popular class. People seemed to love it. They rolled them into beads about this size and put holes through them and strung them as a bracelet is what they ended up doing in the class. So, hope you like that. I know I had fun. And come back again soon for another polymer clay video. Bye-bye.